Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery here. We get together with our distribution partners most weekday mornings at 8 o'clock Central to talk about strategies, tips, techniques, share success stories, and solve problems so each of you can be successful. So today we're going to cover a very important topic, label, as my screen should be shared with you, the white label partner compliance training. This is meant to be interactive. So we have the Q&A function of Zoom, kind of like a chat function. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, feel free to type it in and we'll address it. It's very important to understand why we developed the white label partnership program. And this isn't specifically on the screen, but I'll get to the material on the screen in a moment. We wanted to have an economically empowering program to work with professionals like yourselves, where we can work together, share the profit equally, 50-50, no upfront cost, and be able to help improve the financial literacy and access to capital for small businesses. So taking the access to capital program out to the marketplace. So with that being said, we want our white label partners to be successful. We also realize not everyone is cut out to be a white label partner. That's why we have the affiliate program as an option. And we've even reached out to all of our white label partners, I believe, that are not compliant currently and said, hey, if you want to switch over, you can be an affiliate. But we'll get to that in a minute. But our goal, our focus is for our white label partners to be successful. And we have training and support to accomplish this. We have the daily Zooms. We've asked each of you to schedule weekly one-on-one calls. We have the text line, which kind of serves as a chat line so we can help you on the fly. We're starting again in-person trainings to invite you to if you're more of a visual in-person learner. We're committed to your success, but at the same time, we need white label partners that are committed to do what they promise to do. So moving on here. So how do we measure success? Well, it's at least partially measured by compliance with the terms and conditions of the white label license agreement. So in other words, that's why agreements exist, right? It's when two or more parties get together and what each party promises to do is in writing. So we understand what is expected from each other. And relationships aren't perfect. I've been married almost 30 years, and my wife has had to be very patient because I'm not a perfect person. And relationships can have bumps and ups and downs. But through communication, typically we can resolve that if there's a commitment. So we certainly have a commitment to each of our white label partners. And we ask and pray that our white label partners have that same commitment to what they promise to do. So what are a couple of the things that we use to measure success? Well, we want white label partners that are active, that are not dabblers. So white label partners explicitly agree, it's clearly written in black and white, that after initial 30-day grace period for ramp up time, that they're going to help at least 8 clients a month. 8 clients a month, 2 a week, 8 a month. Why is that? Well, I use the word dabbling, and maybe that's not a very professional word, but people that just dabble in things, they do it a little bit here, a little bit there. They often don't develop competency. They're not focused on it. And we want white label partners that are professionals, that are engaged, and at least focused on this enough to help at least 8 clients a month. By doing that, the outcome is that we're able to help small businesses improve their financial literacy, have loan packages, and have increased access to capital. So it's good for the client. But at the same time, it's freaking great for the white label partners. And we're going to go through the economics a bit here in a moment, because I'm not sure that everyone understands how economically rewarding this could and should be for white label partners. So it's a win-win, win-win-win, I guess, right? You win, clients win, we win by being able to help more clients by working through you, our white label partners. So let's spend a moment looking at the economic modeling. So there is no doubt that there's a $10,000 license fee to become a white label partner. It's clearly stated in the agreement, but what we say is that we'll waive it because we don't want you to pay the $10,000 license fee. If we did, we wouldn't waive it. We would invoice you and you'd pay it even before you got started. But we don't invoice you before you get started. We say there's a $10,000 license fee, but we'll waive it. We'll waive it as long as you comply with the agreement. Some people say, well, why do you do that? Well, let's use an example or an analogy. A number of you are attorneys. And so when you applied for law school, whether it be Harvard or a tier 3 or a tier 4 school, doesn't matter, you probably were offered a scholarship, right? An academic scholarship based upon the strength of your file. Scholarships operate the same way. Okay, you'll get this if you do that. You have to have, at least a 3.0 GPA, for example, your first year, called L1 of law school. So it's not unusual for incentives to be offered contingent upon something else. And so we make it very clear. It's not hidden. It's not fine print. Yes, there's a $10,000 license fee because we're plugging you into a system that should allow you to help a lot of people and make a lot of money. And we'll talk about the money in a minute. But we agree to waive it as long as you do what you say you'll do. I was talking to a white label partner yesterday who's not in compliance. He's like, well, I didn't know there was a $10,000 license fee due if I didn't comply. And it's like, I don't know how any reasonable person could have read the agreement and not realized that. It's clearly stated, it's not fine print. But again, we don't want to collect a license fee from our white label partners. The model is not developed that way. So let's move on now. We have with the white label partnership, essentially, and there's a few caveats, but essentially there is a 50-50 split of the revenue generated. And I'm going to break down the revenue so we're all on the same page. And frankly, you control the revenue because you control pricing as a white label partner. But ignoring that, on average, just using the normal setup, there's about $12,500 that's earned per client that enrolls in the access to capital, and they have no upfront cost either, of course. So the white label partner has no upfront cost. There is a license fee, but we promise to waive it as long as they do what they've promised to do. And then we can go out and help clients with an incredible proposition, and they have no upfront cost. And the white label partner can anticipate earning gross income of about $12,500 each time they do that. And since our promise together is to help 8 clients a month, if you take 12,500 times 8, that's right about $100,000 a month. I mean, you could go out and buy a Domino's franchise, and we're obviously not a franchise, but you could, just for comparison, you could buy a Domino's franchise, invest a lot of money to get that set up, and you probably wouldn't project to generate $100,000 a month. So it's a really good deal. Is it the right fit for everyone? No, the affiliate role might be better, but it's a great economic opportunity. So let's dig deeper into the economic modeling. So one of the important attributes of the white label partnership is that the clients, when I say client, we're talking about the small business owner that enrolls. So the clients contract with the white label partners. The clients don't contract with us. We have a contract with the white label partner. So there's 2 separate sets of agreements. The agreement between the white label partner and us, which is really what we're talking about being compliant to today. And separate from that, there's the agreement between the client and the white label partner. Now, we provide a white label partner Dropbox, and it has an editable agreement. And so the white label partner can make whatever changes they want to in terms of pricing and terms and language. But let's just assume that they're following the normal setup, and those are going to be the examples I give. So each client that enrolls promises to pay the white label partner a deposit. Now, you could decide if you want to make that a refundable or non-refundable deposit. That is up to you. But beyond that, it's not paid up front, right? Because our promise to the client is no upfront cost. We're not changing that. It would be paid to the white label partner after their first tranche. And what we're going to talk about the accounting of these transactions in a moment. But the bottom line is you can anticipate receiving $2,500 from each client from the deposit, which you can make refundable or non-refundable. And then secondly, you have the performance fee. The performance fee, as we'll talk about in more detail in a moment, is the money that is paid after each tranche of capital raise. Normally it's 10%, but you could make it more, you could make it less. Now keep in mind, so when I say that you as the white label partner can change these deposits, make it more, make it less. You can change the performance fees, make it more, make it less. You can give all this away for free if you wanted. You could say, hey, world, we won't charge you deposits. Hey, world, we won't charge you any performance fee. That's admirable. And if that's what you want to do, put that in your contract between you and the client. But that doesn't change the contract between you and us, which we're going to cover those economic portions as well. So normal is a $2,500 refundable deposit. Normal is a 10% performance fee, and that would generate per client, because we're promising the client at least $100,000 capital raise. So 100,000 times 10% is 10,000. Add that to the 2,500, and there you have 12.5. So that's where the number comes from. All right, so now let's drill down a little bit more on a per client transaction and talk about record keeping. Now, some of you are accountants, some of you are bookkeepers, some of you have MBAs, others of you have different backgrounds, and it doesn't matter. But just like you and I go out and teach small businesses, you need to run a business like a business. And one element of that, remember the 27 mistakes training video that we have? But one of those elements is you should track your money properly. And so while we don't sell, we don't have a financial interest in QuickBooks. I think you all know, I used to be a high school teacher. I taught computer programming, I taught introduction to business, and I taught accounting. And in accounting too, I taught the students how to use and how to become certified in QuickBooks. So you'll hear me reference QuickBooks. I don't care if you or they use QuickBooks or some competitor, but QuickBooks is a generic term I'm using here to talk about software to track revenue and expenses, to measure and manage the finances of a business. That's what a business owner does, right? A credible business tracks revenue. So what does this mean specifically in context of what we're discussing now? So each time that a white label partner enrolls a client, what should they be doing? They should go to their QuickBooks or whatever software they're using and record an account receivable. The term account receivable means it's money owed. So the client, once they've signed the contract with you, the white label partner, owes you money. Now, that doesn't mean they have to pay right now. There may be triggers of when they pay, but there is an accounts receivable off of two triggers, as we've discussed. The client has promised to pay you, the white label partner, a $2,500 deposit. You'd say, well, Tom, this is bullshit. You said there's no upfront cost. That's right. They pay you after they receive their first tranche of financing. Now we've got the system working pretty well. That's normally within a week or so. So you would want to record that in your QuickBooks. So once that client has signed a contract with you, they've promised to pay you $2,500. The way the agreement with the client, the template reads, they don't have to pay that up front. They can pay it after their first tranche of financing. But if they refuse their first tranche of financing, then they need to pay you up front. They owe it to you. The second trigger of economic income to the white label partner are the performance fees. And again, these are after each tranche of financing. Now, we don't know how much capital we'll end up raising for each client. We know we guarantee the 100,000. Some of you are changing that guarantee, and that's within your control because that's between you and them, your agreement with them. But let's say that they raised 150,000. Well, then of course there's going to be more performance fee earned, but we don't know. So the contract between you and the client, if you're using the normal template, says that they'll work with you to raise at least 100,000 and pay you at least 10%. So that's why we use this. So could a per client generate more? for you, the white label partner, than 12.5? Certainly could, but we're basing it off of the contractual guarantees. So 12.5 is what you would anticipate. So that's good, right? So now you have accounts receivables. Accounts receivables are assets. It adds to the liquidity of your business, because you and I know what's the definition of liquidity. Cash plus cash equivalents. AR is a cash equivalent. Can you use those receivables to get financing, to do factoring, to do different things? Quite possibly. So that's real. It's real. This is how businesses ran. When a contract is signed, there's obligations made by both parties. And in this case, the client has made an obligation to you, the white label partner, to pay $2,500 based upon a trigger, and $10,000 based upon a different trigger. So we good so far. So that's great news, right? $12,500. Even if that client turns around and quits, they still owe it to you, because that's the way the contract template is written. Now, if you want to just let them off and write it off, I have one white label partner, and he's very good about having our weekly calls where we're reconciling. And he's got these two clients that just quit on him. So they contracted, but they quit. And I said, well, Quincy, you got to make a decision, because you owe us, which we're going to talk about the obligations between the white label partner and us in just a moment. It's the next thing on the slide. So if you just write it off and you let them just walk away, essentially breach their contract with no recourse, that doesn't stop the obligations between the white label partner and us. So you must keep that in mind. It's no different. Again, use the Domino's example. Let's say that we bought a Domino's franchise together and we decided to give away free pepperoni pizzas. Would we still have to buy the pepperoni and pay for the pepperoni from Domino's franchise? Of course, right? So just because we've decided to give away pizza doesn't mean that our cost of services, cost of goods necessary to make the product or provide the service has been written off. So that's important to understand. All right, so then on the other side of the transaction is, again, in QuickBooks or whatever software you're using, you know that you're promising to pay us $4,250 minimally per client. And of course, this is all clearly laid out. It's an Exhibit A of the white label license agreement. So I'm not here making up things as we go. It's all part of the agreement that you've read. That's the beautiful thing. White label partners are sharp. So they read the agreement, they decide if they want to be a white label partner, and then they're following that. So I'm not introducing new information. I'm just trying to reiterate some of the important elements for our discussion today. So, you have AR of 12.5 for each client, assuming normal contractual terms. And you owe us at least $4,250. And so let's go back to Quincy. So if Quincy's just going to let those two clients just walk, that's expensive for Quincy. We wouldn't recommend that. We need to make sure that the clients are happy and engaged and all that, make sure they're well served. But otherwise, Quincy owes us $8,500, $4,250 times 2 for those clients that have enrolled, that have started the process, they didn't finish. Some people are financially illiterate. I'm sure you're not, and I don't think I am. And so some people will think, oh, well, I can just start and stop things if I want. I changed my mind. And that's not the way that contracts are written. Contracts are written, often not the way they're written, to clarify what are the rights and responsibilities of each party. So there's no conflict. And so if there is a disagreement, then both parties can just amenably go back and look at the agreement and say, well, what did I agree to? What is stated? Now, do we want Quincy to come out of pocket $8,500? Absolutely not. We want to work with Quincy and support him in getting those clients engaged, because the clients owe him $25,000, right? $12,500 times 2. So it's just important to understand these economic modeling concepts, that each client that enrolls, you have accounts receivable coming in, but you also have accounts payable committed going out. Okay, so with that being said, let's progress. Now, what happens if we have a failure to comply? Well, In relationships, whether it be, again, marriage or business, don't always go smoothly. And so the goal is to resolve disputes professionally and efficiently when needed. So if we have a white label partner that fails to do what they promised to do, which is stated in writing in the agreement, we have a friendly, professional, and obviously a legally compliant process. We worked with a number of legal professionals to put this together, and it is fair and it's freaking bulletproof. Now, what can you take away from this? If you're a white label partner and you have a client that stiffs you, we could help you set up a process that makes you bulletproof too, because you don't want to get the losing end of transactions when clients breach with you. And we don't want to be on the losing end of when white label partners breach with us, which our goal is for not to happen. So the first thing that we do is we send a notice of breach to the white label partner. Now, we don't send that via first class mail. We don't have the sheriff come out and knock on the door and give it as a court petition. It's just simply an Adobe, and it says, hey, according to our records, you're not doing what you promised to do. So, hey, let's resolve the breach. Let's get back on track, right? And if you don't really want to be a white label partner, hey, you can opt out, and we won't even ask you to pay the full $10,000 that was promised to pay when you signed. And if you don't feel that we're getting things covered properly, we can use ADR, alternative dispute resolution. What falls under that is typically arbitration and or mediation. And so let's get this resolved, right? We don't want to be angry at each other. We need to figure out what the problem is and solve the problem. That's the true commitment. And so that's a very similar approach to what we'd recommend each of you have as white label partners in place when you have a client. The client maybe isn't participating, or if they're not paying as agreed, you want to process. And so this is the process that we use for our white label partners. I know that some of you yesterday received this notice of breach, just yesterday. And we said, hey, you're breaching the agreement according to our records. And what did we do? For each of you that received that, we said, hey, let's resolve this. We want you to be happy. We want you to be successful. If you're not in the right seat on the bus, you can opt out of the white label partnership. And there was a spot to initial on that form that we gave you if you wanted to opt out. Made it real simple. And again, if you don't feel like we're doing what we promised to do, you have to let us know. But it needs to be specific, right? You just can't say, oh, you guys suck. You know, what is it in the agreement that we promised to do that we're not doing? Give us notice of that so we can fix it, because we want to do exactly what we promised to do. And of course, we're asking you to do what you promised to do. So the notice went out to a number of you yesterday. So you're on notice. Let's fix the problem. We want to fix the problem in a friendly, professional, legally compliant process. Now, what happens, and again, this can be viewed with two lenses, one of which as a white label partner, the process, but again, something that you may want to replicate or mimic or duplicate when you have clients that don't do what they promise to do in their contracts, right? So there's a lesson to be learned from it. So if not resolved, then what we do is we initiate a discovery request. Now, each of you probably can't do that. Why is it you can't do it and we can? Well, there are different rules by state. And Texas actually has the most liberal pre-lawsuit discovery in the whole nation. It's called Texas Civil Procedure Rule 202. And you can look it up if you want. I'm not an attorney. I can't give you legal advice. But the point is, we do this and we're allowed to do this. But it may be that you're not allowed to do this if you're not based in Texas. Your state may have a different rule that may work differently. That's just an asterisk there for you. So with that, we will send a discovery request. And this goes through the court system, right? This isn't just us saying, hey, give us some information. This is through the Texas Civil Procedure through the court that has venue, has jurisdiction. And so then with that, one of two outcomes can happen. Either the white label partner responds, we look at the information that's been received and we decide, okay, how do we go forward from here? That's what it's intended to do. That's why it was developed, is to help before a lawsuit is filed, to help determine, should a lawsuit be filed, what should happen thereafter. The alternative is if the white label partner doesn't respond or provides an incomplete response, now they're in trouble with the legal system because this is a legal process. And so then one of our attorneys most likely will motion for what's called sanctions. And sanctions can be different things, and it's at the discretion of the judge and of the court, but it could be fines, it could be imprisonment, it could be a variety of things, and it could trigger criminal or civil complaints. So essentially, our goal with the discovery request is to try to resolve if we've not been able to do that with the notice. But if the white label partner doesn't respond, then it's going to always get escalated because there's no option. Essentially, the white label partner has given us the bird, the middle finger, and said, never mind. So then we will go ahead and file suit. Now, I had one white label partner said, well, I don't want you threatening me. It's like, oh, no, it's not a threat, right? We made it an agreement, a very generous agreement. We said, hey, we'll plug you into the white label partner model. We won't charge you anything up front. There is a license fee, but we'll waive it perpetually as long as you plug in and remain active. And from that, we'll do a 50-50 revenue split, which should generate around $12,500 gross income per client. That's a damn good deal. But it only works if the white label partner follows through and does what they say. And so what we're discussing now is, what do we do if the white label partner is not complying? So if you've received a notice of breach, we really want to resolve it. And if you want to opt out, you have the ability to opt out with it. But doing nothing is not a good choice because our investors aren't going to allow us to do nothing. Our investors are going to move forward in the process. And that's not what we want. That's not what was envisioned. But I'm just trying to clarify what will, in fact, happen. They asked me to discuss a number of bullets, and I didn't really want to go into this because it seems more negative Nelly, but let's just go through it because I was told to go through it. I want to keep my job. So there are some important elements of the license agreement. Now, I realize you all are professionals, you're knowledgeable. You read the white label license agreement before you signed it, of course, right? It was sent to you via Adobe. You voluntarily signed it, you read it, so you know it. And then you received an executed copy back. But there's just a few things that they asked me to clarify with you. So let's do that. Like the guy yesterday said, well, I didn't know there was a $10,000 license fee. Again, it's waived upon compliance, but it's like, dude, I don't know. I mean, if you had a 5th grade education and you read, it clearly states it. So ignorance of the terms of a contract is not considered a defense. And so when there's a breach of contract, saying, oh, I didn't realize that, or I didn't read that, or I didn't know that, if it's in the agreement, you've committed to it. So that guy is way off. It certainly includes a personal guarantee. It's designed to be where both the business and the owner are under the contract. It has a very clear definition of failure to perform. So there's not some trick of, oh, you signed up and now you owe $10,000. Not at all. So just like the license fee is very clearly stated, it says, hey, we agree to work together to help at least 2 clients a week. Now we're going to give a 30-day grace period because, of course, it takes some time to get your arms around it and start promoting. So it's very fair, but it's clearly stated. So ignorance of this is not a valid defense. It does have what's a very aggressive clause, and Karen put it in, and some people hate it and some people love it, but all the white label partner agreements have a confession of judgment clause. And what that does is it allows us to waive the need for trial. We don't have to go to trial. The white label partner has already acknowledged the breach before it occurred, if it occurs, and so allows it to go straight to judgment. Additionally, contracts, the venue can either be explicitly stated in the agreement or left upon where the people live and work that are involved with the contract. Well, when Karen developed our contract, it says it's Wood County, Texas, because that's where most of the work is done. That's where we're based. And so again, I'll have some white label partners that say, well, I live in Georgia, so this doesn't matter. Well, you agreed for the jurisdiction to be Wood County, Texas. Therefore, we're going to be following the Texas rules using the Texas court system. It states that the entire agreement is in writing, and that's important because sometimes people hear things that are not accurate, and so now they want to include verbal discussions. Well, you said, or we discussed, or we emailed, or we text. Unless it's an addendum, signed addendum by both parties to the agreement, it's not part of the agreement. That's why we have agreements in writing. So I have had some of you that came back and wanted addendums to the agreement, and we can do that. But if we've not gone through and explicitly formed an addendum for your agreement that were signed by both parties, it's not part of the agreement. It certainly does have the daily late fees when applicable, and we don't want anyone to pay daily late fees, but you'll find this too. If you are a white label partner and you have clients that don't do what they promise to do, you'll probably want to have daily late fees in your client agreement as well, because it motivates them to resolve it and it makes it a much bigger award. Think about that for a second. So if you're a white label partner and let's say you have a client that doesn't participate or doesn't pay as agreed, so you give them notice, you invoice them, and then they start having daily late fees. Well, think about that for a moment. In 1 month at $50 a day, if there's 30 days in a month, which is the norm, you've now they owe you $1,500 more. Well, a lot of times cases won't go to court in 30 days, I mean by 60 or 90 days. So now they owe you the principal amount plus the court fees, late cost, and thousands of dollars of late fees. Is it meant to be punitive or harmful? Of course not, but it's a motivator. Hey, let's get this resolved. And as I mentioned before, if you as the white label partner feel that we have not done everything that we promised to do, let us know so we have a chance to resolve it. And if we don't resolve it, then we've agreed to use arbitration, which is fine. It's not mean or being hateful. It's like, let's get an independent third party in to hear both sides. Now, we tend to do a good job and focused on following the agreement. But again, if you feel like we've not, you need to let us know so we can resolve specifically what it is. It can't be some general statement. But I do forewarn, to date, we've never lost an arbitration case. And so we're pretty good and very focused on doing what we promised to do. All right, so if you need assistance, of course, we have a number of different ways that we support our white label partners. We have these daily Zooms, and I'm going to get to your questions and comments in a moment. You can email us. We have a text line. We encourage each of you to schedule weekly calls. So there's a number of ways, but email would be quick and easy at this point. So let me go through the questions, comments that you have, and then we'll wrap it up. All right, so Harry says, hey, I didn't know that you guys have these Zooms every day. Well, we sent each of you a white label partner onboarding email, and it alerted you of that. We record most of these that you can go access off of our YouTube channel. And once you've registered for one, you don't have to get a different registration link for others. So we don't always do a daily reminder to say, oh, join us tomorrow, join us tomorrow, join us tomorrow, because we have these Mondays through Fridays in general. It's always the same time. It's always the same link. And so that has been communicated. And then each of you should have your white label partner Dropbox with the resources in it. If not, you've got to let us know, because maybe we dropped the ball, but more than likely you just didn't see it or you didn't assimilate it, which isn't the end of the world. But if you don't let us know that there's a break in the system, what are we to do about it? We don't know that you don't have or can't find what you should have. All right, so then that covers kind of what Mr. Garcia was saying as well, so we'll dismiss that. Aziz is going to get active with volume. Thank you. And that's all we want, right? We want you as a white label partner to make a lot of money and help a lot of people. That's what we want. We want everyone to be happy. All right, so Doug's got a complicated question. Are they getting, well, okay. So as far what Doug's asking about without reading his full paragraph is, the first thing you need to be focused on as a white label partner is knowing how to enroll a client. And we've talked about that. There's two things you need to do. You go to your white label partner Dropbox, you get the access to capital participation agreement, you edit it with your terms, your branding, your company information, and then you have a client sign that, and then there's the funding proposal application. You have them complete that one pager. You upload those two documents into the white label partner Dropbox we provided you, alert us of that, and then now we're off and running. We'll go get their first tranche of financing. But at any point during the process, you're right, Doug, clients could quit. And if you have a strong dispute resolution approach, like I perceive that we do, you can help ensure that most of them comply. Because you could just have a client that comes in and they don't like their first tranche of financing, the amount that they received or the interest rates. Oh, this won't work for me, I quit. Well, you need to manage that, right? Because you have a contract with them, they have a contract with you, and you want to explain, well, Joe or Susie, if you quit, then here's what will happen. So you would send a notice of breach to them and attempt to resolve it. That's what we always want. We want to resolve it. But you're right, Doug. We live in a society where a lot of people just want to dismiss responsibility. And we're not going to let that ride. And I would presume that you want to hold people accountable for the agreements you have as well. Thank you, Doug, for that. Millie's asking about information on the Access to Capital program. Just go into your white label partner Dropbox, Millie. You are loaded with information. We also have our training library. It's on a YouTube channel. There's probably 300 training videos that you could view if you wanted, Millie. Now, over time, some of the subject matter may be less relevant, but if you go to your white label partner Dropbox and go into the library of past trainings, you should be golden. But ultimately, if I were you, Millie, I'd go to your agreement, right? You have a participation agreement template that we provided you in your white label partner Dropbox. I would start by really knowing that agreement, because that is what you're promising to do with the client, what the client's promising to do with you. So that kind of ties back to our whole point. When we enter into contracts, we need to be committed to following those contracts, and we need to hold ourselves and the other parties responsible to do what we said that we would do. Thank you, Melanie, for that question. Vernon's asking about the difference between affiliate and white label partner. So if you go back to the YouTube channel, you'll see that we did a side-by-side comparison training on one of our sessions, comparing the difference between the affiliate and the white label partner. I'll give you a snippet answer, of course, Vernon, but I encourage you to go view that full training. So an affiliate gets a free landing page, they refer in, get paid, nothing else. White label partners, more advanced involvement. Contracts are between the client and themselves. We're doing a 50-50 revenue split. So white label partner is a more complicated but more financially rewarding model. Affiliate is super simple. Just drive people to your landing page and get paid. But again, if you go, Vernon, back to our YouTube channel, there's a much more in-depth answer than what I just gave you there. All right, and so Alfred's asking a great question that is very intuitive. So we're at pretty much the end of 2022 as of this recording. So you need to go back, in my opinion, if you're a white label partner, and look at every client that you enrolled during the course of 2022. And we need to make sure that we've reconciled on those. If some of those clients aren't participating, now's a really good time to encourage them to, because You owe us our portion. They owe you your portion. And if you don't ask them for it, they probably won't pay you. So encourage them, support them, engage with them so they can do what they promise to do. So you get your 12.5 or whatever that amount is from them, because it's right. We're going to be asking you for what you promised to pay us. So, what if the client signed up and then quit? Again, we don't want you to be upside down on it, but if you're just dropping that client and not holding them responsible for what they promised to do for you, that doesn't mean that our investors are dropping what you promised to do for us. So we can defer this, we can hold off, but we need to have some sort of plan to resolve every one of those clients that have been enrolled. We have one white label partner, and he owes us, without any late fees, $250,000, because he went out and enrolled a shitload of people and he didn't set their expectations correct. He didn't do a good job. He didn't help them. Every one of them quit. So he now owes us, and we're going to litigate for $250,000. Now, do we want that to happen? Of course not. Of course not. We want white label partners to do what? To be successful. We've talked about that. But if you're going to be a white label partner, you've got to run it like a business. You're the CEO of what should be $1 million a year gross income business. You need to run it like a business. And so people owe you. You need to collect it from them, and we can give you some advice and direction. If you owe bills like you owe us, we would expect you to pay us. That's the way businesses operate, right? Millie has a follow-up question. Can she downgrade to an affiliate partner? Yeah. And so anyone that's not currently compliant, they should have received a notice of breach yesterday, and it had an opt-out. We call it. If you want to opt out of being a white label partner and switch over to being an affiliate, that is facilitated right there on that form that we sent each of you. If you didn't receive that form, or maybe you came on recently, or you're in good standing, but you don't want to continue as a white label partner, that's okay. Let us know. Just request the opt-out Adobe and we'll send it to you. Yeah, because it's all about everyone being in the right role. All right, well, I've gone way over, for which I apologize, but let me summarize and close, because this is a big deal. If you become a white label partner, you should be plugging in, well, you're plugging into what should be, let me get the vernacular correct, what should be $1 million business in the upcoming year. But to do that, we need to run it like a business. We need to comply. We need to enroll at least 8 clients a month. Now, let's say you're having trouble coming up with clients, then let's talk about that. We've provided numerous trainings on lead sources. We've talked about Synergy Direct Solutions and how well that's worked for a number of you. They'll give you free leads, and we have no financial involvement with SynergyDirectSolution.com. We have no financial interest in it. We don't get kickbacks or anything like that. But a number of you are using Synergy Direct Solution. They'll provide you free leads. They have what's called VAs, virtual assistants, that will call those leads for you. Most of you that have told us that you're using Synergy Direct Solution has reported that you're getting 1 to 1.5 leads per hour that VA is working the phone. And what's each of those worth to you? Around $12,500. I mean, so and that's by far not the only way to generate leads, but that's one of the best ways. And if you're just struggling with coming up with leads, then we need to address that problem. If you feel that you don't understand, sometimes we'll have new white label partners that say, I just don't understand. It's like, well, did you go through the onboarding email that we sent you? And usually they'll say yes, because it's a poorly worded question on our part. And then we'll ask a few probing questions, and it's clear that they haven't. Well, you need to go through the onboarding email. Have you gone through the documents in your white label partner Dropbox? And again, that's a poorly worded question, because they'll almost always say, oh, yes, or kind of, or I skimmed them. Well, I mean, this should be $1 million freaking business, right? How in the world do you just skim on something that you're expecting to should generate $100,000 a month in bank deposits, right? So it's a fallacy to I think in most industries or opportunities, that it's unrealistic to think, oh, I can go make $1 million a year, but I don't have to develop some knowledge or expertise or proficiency. And that's, again, why we want our white label partners to not be dabblers, to be active. 2 a week is keeping their feet to the fire. They're actively involved, and they're more likely to provide a better service to the client, which is the ultimate goal. We want clients to improve their financial literacy. We want to provide them a lender compliant loan package. We want to increase their access to capital, getting them a minimum of $100,000 to start or grow business. So it's all about helping the clients. But what we've done is we've taken this model that started as an SBA/SBDC government job, and we've morphed it into something where you can plug in with no upfront cost and earn an adult income by helping others. I mean, your alternative, go do what I did. I didn't know about all this in the beginning, so I just took a job with the SBA. I forget what they paid me back then. I think it was $52,000 or $55,000. I don't remember. Embarrassing, right? And so that's essentially what I was doing. I was helping clients improve financial literacy, build loan package, and get increased access to capital. So you could either make that in a month by being a white label partner, or go take a government job and make it in a year. But the goal is to help clients while helping you be successful. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All I can say in closing is, if you did receive a notice of breach, don't ignore it. It's not going to go away. Our investors are not going to let it go away. We want to resolve it. We want you to be happy and successful. But if you don't resolve it, you don't respond, then this will happen. And it's allowed by Texas civil procedure. And that is the start of an expensive and painful process to resolve it. We're only looking to protect ourselves for what you promised to do. No different than what you would expect your clients to do. If clients sign with you, you're expecting them to do what they promised to do, which should generate at least $12,500. It's not bad. It's not negative. That's how business works, right? We're not emotionally attached to this. We have an agreement, and both parties should do what they said that they would do. And we are committed to doing what we promised to do for you. And obviously, we would like you to do what you promised to do. If at any time you don't want to continue to be a white label partner, let us know. We can send you the opt-out, and you can opt out, and you will not be asked to pay the full $10,000. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns before we wrap it up today? 2 ways to take all this information. I guess it kind of puts you on notice if you are a white label partner, but equally as important is you need to think as a business owner, and as a white label partner, you want to manage your business properly, hold your clients accountable for what they said that they would do. And of course, you need to do what you promised to do with them and with us. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.